No one made an offer. No one even looked twice. The giant alien woman sat alone in a rusted cage, waiting to die. Every species in the galaxy agreed on one thing. She was worthless. Everyone except one human. Immediate questions created. Why was she abandoned? Why is nobody helping her? What makes this human different? What happens when someone everyone calls worthless is finally seen? Act 1. A station built on forgotten lives. Main events. Introduce the dying trade station orbiting a poisoned world. Show empty corridors, flickering lights, and abandoned sectors. Establish that this place once connected civilizations, but now profits from desperation. Introduce Kane Halden, a human cultural preservationist. Kane receives another notice that an entire civilization's records have been erased. Emotional trigger, failure, and regret. Kane has spent years trying to save cultures before they disappear. Every time he fails, another civilization is forgotten forever. Human underdog setup. Humans are not powerful here. Kane is not a warrior, politician, or billionaire. He has no influence. Nobody listens to him. His warnings are ignored by powerful organizations. Main conflict. A galaxy that only values profit. If something isn't useful, it gets discarded. Act 2. The discovery. Main events. Kane wanders into the station's forgotten lower decks. These areas contain unwanted cargo, failed projects, and abandoned beings. He notices a cage with no active security. Inside sits an enormous humanoid female. Alien perspective element. Show how others view her. Too large. Too expensive. Too inconvenient. Too difficult to transport. Too difficult to house. To everyone else. She is a failed product. Emotional conflict. The audience sees that Alina isn't violent. She isn't dangerous. She's simply given up. That is far more heartbreaking. Mystery loop number 1. Why has someone this extraordinary been abandoned? Act 3. The storm approaches. Main events. Emergency alarms suddenly activate. Acid storms are incoming. Workers rush for shelter. Guards evacuate detainees. Everyone except Lot 7. When questioned, a handler says, "Leave her. She's not tagged." Meaning, she isn't even considered valuable enough to rescue. Emotional trigger, humiliation, and abandonment. For years, Alina has watched people walk away. This time is no different. Main conflict. Kane must decide. Walk away like everyone else. Or risk everything for someone he doesn't know. Human trait emerging. Empathy without reward. No profit. No recognition. No reason. Just conscience. Act 4. The choice. Main events. Kane overrides the cage lock. Enters despite the danger. Tries speaking to her. Receives no response. Notices scars across her body. Notices strange markings that look older than the station itself. Mystery loop number 2. What do those markings mean? Who was she before becoming Lot 7? Emotional peak. Kane kneels beside her. He sees someone who has stopped believing she matters. Then he says, "I see you. Not, you're valuable. You're useful. You're strong. Simply, I see you." End of part. Cliffhanger. The first drops of acid begin melting metal outside. Time is running out. Kane takes her enormous hand. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, a single blink. A tiny movement. The first sign of life. The first sign of hope. And as the storm closes in, the giant finally begins to stand. As acid rain melted steel outside, the giant alien woman everyone abandoned finally stood. A single human had offered her something no one else ever had. Not food. Not money, not freedom. He offered recognition. But Kane had no idea that the being he rescued wasn't merely a forgotten laborer. She was the last surviving piece of a civilization the galaxy had already erased. Act 1. Shelter from the storm. Objective. Transform Alina from a mysterious prisoner into a sympathetic character while deepening the emotional bond between her and Kane. Main events. Kane and Alina barely reach the emergency shelter before the acid storm seals them inside. Outside, corrosive rain eats through pipes and station infrastructure. Inside, silence dominates. Alina remains alert and withdrawn, expecting betrayal. Kane shares his food and water despite limited supplies. Emotional trigger. Distrust versus kindness. Alina has been conditioned to believe every act of generosity comes with a price. Kane expects nothing. That difference unsettles her. Main conflict. Alina doesn't know how to accept compassion. She spent her entire life surviving exploitation. Human trait hint. Human persistence and kindness. Kane keeps treating her like a person even when she doesn't respond. Act 2. The truth behind Lot 7. Main events. Kane finally gets Alina talking. She reveals she was officially decommissioned. She was engineered for agricultural work on high-gravity colony worlds. Her species was designed for strength, endurance, and labor. As she matured, she grew larger than standard industrial specifications. Emotional conflict. The audience learns why nobody wanted her. Housing costs increased. Food requirements increased. Transportation costs increased. The galaxy reduced her entire existence to a spreadsheet. Alien perspective element. To corporations, she wasn't a person. She was a bad investment. Escalation. Alina explains she was repeatedly sold, transferred, and abandoned. Each owner saw her as a problem. Eventually, no one wanted her. Mystery loop number 1. If her people were engineered workers, who engineered them? And what happened to their original culture? Act 3. The human sees something others missed. Main events. Kane examines the scars and markings covering her body. He notices they don't resemble ownership brands. He uses old linguistic databases to compare symbols. The markings match fragments of an ancient extinct civilization. Emotional trigger. Discovery of lost identity. Everything Alina believed about herself begins to crack. Maybe she wasn't created as a tool. Maybe she descended from something much older. Main conflict. The truth threatens everything she believes. If she isn't a tool, then who is she? Human trait hint. Curiosity and preservation. Where others see damaged property, humans ask questions. Act 4. The lost meaning. Main events. Kane successfully translates one of the symbols. It isn't a production mark. It isn't a serial code. It is a cultural title. A sacred title. Revelation. The symbol means one who endures what others cannot. Emotional high point. For the first time in her life, someone tells Alina her scars aren't proof of failure. They're proof of survival. Emotional conflict. She struggles to process it, because accepting that truth means confronting years of abuse. Human strength emerging. Humans don't just save lives. They restore meaning. Act 5. 2 broken people. Main events. The storm continues outside. Kane shares his own failures. He tells Alina about cultures he couldn't save. Entire peoples erased because nobody cared enough. Emotional trigger. Shared loneliness. Both of them carry guilt. Both feel forgotten. Both believe they've failed someone. Relationship development. For the first time, Alina relaxes. Not fully, but enough to rest beside another living being. Mystery loop number 2. Why does Kane care so much? What tragedy makes him refuse to walk away from lost people? End of part cliffhanger. As the storm finally weakens, Kane discovers something astonishing. The markings on Alina's body don't belong to an extinct civilization. They belong to a civilization that was deliberately erased. Someone wanted their history forgotten. Someone rewrote who her people were. And Alina may be carrying memories that powerful forces never wanted found. Final cliffhanger. The galaxy believed her species were nothing more than engineered workers. But what if they were never workers at all? What if the giant woman everyone abandoned was actually the last daughter of a forgotten civilization? The giant alien woman abandoned as worthless was never supposed to have a history, never supposed to have a culture, never supposed to have a name. But hidden beneath the scars on her skin was evidence of a truth someone had spent generations trying to erase. And the deeper Kane looked, the more dangerous that truth became. Act 1. The ghosts hidden in her blood. Objective. Reveal that Alina is far more than a discarded laborer and connect her existence to a galaxy-wide injustice. Main events. Kane brings Alina into his archive network. Using preserved records, he begins matching her markings to ancient historical data. Most records have been deleted, corrupted, or classified. Every search points to the same disturbing pattern. Someone systematically erased her people from history. Emotional trigger. Identity reclaimed. For the first time, Alina sees images of people who look like her. Not workers. Not servants. Not property. People. Families. Communities. A civilization. Alien perspective element. From Alina's point of view, everything she believed about herself begins collapsing. She was taught she came from utility. Instead, she comes from legacy. Mystery loop number 1. Who benefited from erasing her species? And why was the cover-up so thorough? Act 2. The lost civilization. Main events. Kane uncovers archived footage from an agricultural world. Alina recognizes one of the women in the recordings. Not from memory, from instinct. Major reveal. The woman is her origin mother, one of the ancestral genetic carriers from whom entire labor lines were derived. Emotional conflict. Alina discovers she isn't a manufacturing product. She's the descendant of a real people. A people whose culture was stripped away and repackaged into industrial labor generations ago. Escalation. Kane discovers evidence that corporations intentionally destroyed historical records, reclassified a civilization as a workforce, rewrote public databases. An entire species was transformed into property through bureaucracy. Human trait hint. Human refusal to accept official narratives. Where others trust records, Kane keeps digging. Act 3. The truth they never wanted found. Main events. Kane translates additional symbols from Alina's body. They are not ownership marks. They are songs, oaths, family histories, living pieces of a culture. Emotional trigger. The power of memory. Alina begins unconsciously reciting fragments of ancient labor chants. Songs she was never taught. Songs inherited across generations. Revelation. She is not merely surviving history. She is carrying it. Every scar, every symbol, every memory. Main conflict. The discovery changes everything. If her existence becomes public, the corporations responsible could face exposure. Entire industries built on exploitation could collapse. Mystery loop number 2. Who else knows the truth? And how far will they go to keep it buried? Act 4. The hunters arrive. Main events. Security networks reactivate. Old ownership records begin resurfacing. Bounty hunters, scavengers, and corporate recovery agents start tracking them. Suddenly, Alina is no longer worthless. Now she's valuable. Dangerously valuable. Emotional conflict. For years nobody wanted her. Now powerful people want control of her. Nothing has changed. Except the reason. Escalation. Kane and Alina flee through abandoned transport routes. Acid-scarred valleys. Buried tram systems. Collapsing industrial zones. Every escape narrows their options. Human trait emerging. Loyalty. Kane keeps choosing Alina over his own safety. Again and again. Act 5. The breaking point. Main events. The pair become trapped near an abandoned cargo route. Armed interceptors move in. Escape seems impossible. Alina studies the terrain, then makes a decision. Emotional trigger. Self-sacrifice. For the first time in her life, she chooses her own purpose. Not because she was ordered. Not because she was programmed. Because she wants to. Main conflict. Alina decides to draw the hunters away so Kane can escape. Powerful dialogue moment. You said I'm not property anymore. You're not. Then let me choose. Emotional high point. Kane realizes something devastating. Alina is willing to risk everything for him. Because he was the first person who ever treated her like she mattered. Act 6. Humanity revealed. Main events. Alina reveals herself. The hunters pursue her. Kane escapes through the cargo tunnels. Every instinct tells him to keep running. But he can't. Human strength revealed. This is the HFY moment. Humanity's greatest power isn't technology. It isn't strength. It isn't military dominance. It is this. Humans refuse to abandon the people they love. Kane turns back, just as he once wished someone had done for his lost brother. Emotional trigger. Redemption. This time he refuses to fail. End of part cliffhanger. Deep inside the tunnel system, wounded and exhausted, Alina returns. She kept her promise. She came back. Kane rushes to her side. The fear, the relief, the certainty. Everything finally breaks through. And in the darkness beneath a ruined world, he says the words he's been carrying for far too long. I love you. Alina freezes. Because nobody has ever chosen her. Nobody has ever stayed. Nobody has ever loved her. Final cliffhanger. As they hold each other beneath the ruins of a forgotten world, a new reality emerges. The galaxy thought Alina was the last remnant of a dead civilization. But Kane has just given her something even more dangerous than history. The galaxy called her defective. Corporations called her obsolete. Entire worlds looked at the giant alien woman and saw nothing worth saving. But one human refused to walk away. Now, hunted by the system that erased her people and carrying the last living pieces of a forgotten civilization, Alina faces a choice that will determine not only her future, but the future of an entire species. Act 1. A place beyond survival. Objective. Deliver emotional relief while showing the first real signs that healing is possible. Main events. Kane and Alina finally reach Doran's Reach, a remote frontier colony. The settlement is rough, poor, and barely functioning. But unlike the rest of the galaxy, nobody stares. Nobody measures Alina's worth. Nobody asks for ownership papers. For the first time in her life, she is simply another person. Emotional trigger. Acceptance. Something she never received in all her years of existence. Main conflict. Alina doesn't know how to live without fear. Even safety feels unfamiliar. Human trait highlight. Human communities often form around compassion rather than perfection. The colony accepts her because they understand hardship. Act 2. The human who finally succeeded. Main events. Kane begins cataloging everything he learned. Ancient songs, symbols, family lineages, oral traditions hidden within Alina's memories. Emotional conflict. Kane realizes something profound. For years, he tried to preserve dead civilizations. This time, he isn't preserving one. He's helping one live again. Massive internal payoff. The failure that haunted him, the cultures he couldn't save, finally begins to heal. Human strength revealed. Persistence. Most species preserve history in databases. Humans preserve it through relationships, through stories, through people. Act 3. The greatest revelation. Main events. Alina begins sleeping peacefully, dreaming, planning, imagining futures, things she was never allowed to do before. One morning she notices something strange. A rhythm, a second pulse, emotional trigger, hope, not survival, not escape, hope. Major twist. Alina is carrying a child. Emotional impact. Everything changes. Suddenly the story becomes larger than either of them. The last daughter of a forgotten civilization is no longer the end of a bloodline. She is the beginning of one. Main conflict. Fear immediately follows. What kind of future awaits a child born between worlds? Will the galaxy accept them or fear them? Act 4. The real victory. Main events. Kane places his hand against Alina's stomach. Together they feel the tiny heartbeat. Neither speaks at first, because words are too small. Emotional conflict. Both are terrified. Neither knows what comes next. But this fear is different. This fear comes from having something worth protecting. Human trait at full power. Faith in the future. Humanity's greatest strength has always been the ability to build tomorrow even when today is uncertain. Act 5. The galaxy learns the truth. Main events. Kane releases the evidence he collected. Historical records. Cultural archives. Proof of what happened to Alina's people. Across the systems. Shock spreads. The truth can no longer be buried. Massive payoff. The galaxy learns. The species labeled as industrial property were never property. They were a civilization. A people. A culture. A nation erased for profit. Emotional trigger. Justice. Not revenge. Justice. Consequences. Corporate officials face investigation. Archived histories are restored. Lost descendants begin searching for their roots. Forgotten voices are finally heard again. Humanity's role. The movement begins because one human stopped and asked a question nobody else cared enough to ask. Who was she before they called her worthless? Act 6. Legendary ending. Final emotional resolution. Months later, the colony garden is quiet. Morning light spills across the cliffs. Alina sits beneath the artificial sunrise. No cage. No collar. No ownership tags. Only peace. Kane joins her. Together they watch the colony wake. Children laugh in the distance. New crops grow in restored soil. Life continues. Emotional peak. Alina places Kane's hand over her stomach. The heartbeat is stronger now. Steady. Defiant. Alive. She looks at him and asks, "Do you think they'll belong anywhere?" Kane smiles. Then answers, "Everywhere." Humanity's legacy. The galaxy once believed humanity's greatest strength was adaptability. Others believed it was resilience. Some feared it was determination. They were all wrong. Humanity's greatest strength was always this: the ability to see value where everyone else sees nothing, to stand beside the forgotten, to protect the unwanted, to love the abandoned, and through that choice, change the future. Final message. She was too large, too expensive, too inconvenient, too different. The galaxy measured her worth in resources consumed and profits lost. A human measured her worth in something else entirely, a life. And because one human refused to look away, an entire civilization was remembered, a family was born, and a future everyone thought impossible became real. Final cinematic shot. The camera pulls back. Kane and Alina sit together beneath the dawn. One human, one alien, one child yet to be born. Below them, a colony thrives. Above them, the stars stretch endlessly into the dark. And for the first time in a very long time, the future looks bright.